Rarity as a character has always intrigued me, as she's someone who obsesses over material possessions and beauty, while also representing generosity and sacrifice, making her one of the more complex characters in the show. There are many times where we see these values conflict with each other, as she has to confront her desire for status and beauty to maintain her morals and character. I often find the lessons that Rarity learns often reflect that of Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, in which he critiques the decayed morality of his society during the Industrial Revolution, as the growth of capitalism and materialism boomed. In this book, the central character Pip chases wealth and status in pursuit of Stella's love, but in the process loses the kindness and generosity of his younger self. We see similar themes explored throughout Rarity's development in episodes such as Sonic Rainboom, Rarity Takes Manhattan, and Canterlot Boutique, where her values of generosity and friendship come into conflict with her love of class and beauty. So let's see how her character reflects the core themes of Great Expectations and explore the lessons they share. To provide a bit of context, I'm going to briefly explore and summarize Great Expectations here, but feel free to skip this section if you just want to get to the Rarity stuff. Great Expectations is often considered a rather boring book, as its pacing is incredibly slow, making it rather hard for people to begin reading. My first exposure to this novel was actually from a South Park episode where they parodied the book, but it is often regarded as probably one of the worst episodes, and I don't really want to get into that. I actually had to read the book for an English assignment last year, and while I have to say it started off pretty monotonous and boring, the nuance and character and the exploration and manipulation of the different settings actually slowly made me come around to it. And while I probably wouldn't recommend it for a casual reader, as its length and pacing kind of make it a really hard book to get into, I think its story and characters are actually pretty good. Great Expectations has 3 distinct settings, each reflecting an aspect of Dickens' society. There's Pip's hometown of Kent, a relatively small village representing the lower class of England, and the place where qualities of kindness and generosity are often exemplified. Then there's the Saddest House, representative of the upper class and the decayed morality that comes with an emphasis on material wealth. Finally, there's the City of London, representing the working middle class in the Industrial Revolution, and the corrupting nature of status and wealth. Something I'd like to point out here is Dickens isn't actually a socialist like many construe him to be, but he often criticizes the moral and institutional failings of Victorian capitalism, as he grew up experiencing a lot of that injustice as a poor middle-class child factory worker. The book starts with a young Pip who stumbles upon an escaped convict. Despite knowing it to be wrong, Pip resolves to give him bread and wine as he can't stand to watch another person suffer. This act lays the foundation for his early character, as it establishes him to be kind and generous and lacking any sort of prejudice. He is then later sent to the Saddest House to work as a playmate for Estella, who he immediately falls in love with. Estella, however, is rather abrasive, often talking down and insulting Pip, but nevertheless he resolves to become a wealthy gentleman to win her heart. A few years pass as Pip works as a blacksmith apprentice to his stepfather Joe. Here he's approached by the lawyer Mr. Jaggers, who informs Pip of a secret benefactor who sends him to London with great expectations. Here he befriends Herbert Pocket and Bentley Drummle. However, his newly acquired status and gentlemanly education slowly causes him to lose his kind-hearted nature as a child, and when he returns to Kent during his mother's funeral, he becomes quite distant and abrasive to his friends and family, while back in London he found himself developing large amounts of debt due to his lavish lifestyle. Later, Pip's benefactor decides to visit Pip in London, where it's revealed to be the convict he helped back in the start of the book. Initially, Pip was disappointed and angry that his benefactor was a convict, horrified that his gentlemanly life was funded by a criminal. Later, Pip receives a letter from Miss Havisham requesting him to visit the Saddest House. Here she apologizes for the pain that she caused him, as she had been using her daughter, Estella, to break men's hearts. This was due to her being stood up at a wedding, becoming a bitter and spiteful person. Havisham realizes that in doing so, she had become the very thing that caused her own suffering, crying out, "What have I done? What have I done?" She agrees to anonymously fund Herbert Pocket's gentlemanly career and dies as her house burns down around her. Pip then attempts to help Magwitch escape, but they're eventually caught, Magwitch being injured and arrested. His fortune is confiscated by the English crown, leaving Pip broke with large amounts of debt, whilst Magwitch is found guilty and sentenced to death. Magwitch would die of his injuries beside Pip before his execution. Here, Pip would realise that being a true gentleman lies in one's character and morals, not in status and wealth. Joe would help Pip pay off his debts, and Pip would go to work in Cairo, Egypt, as a merchant with Herbert. Some 11 years later, Pip would return to Kent. Here he would reunite with Joe, having remarried to one of Pip's childhood friends, Biddy, and would later meet Estella once more in the ruins of the Satis house. Despite not having any wealth or status, he would see no shadow of another parting from her, leaving hope for their potential future. This story mainly explores how the desire for status and wealth can often corrupt a person's morality through its exploration of Pip and his education in London, eventually revealing how a true gentleman is kind and generous at heart. There are also some pretty nuanced messages in the exploration of other characters, such as Abel Magwitch, who, despite being a convict, the lowest class of the entire story, is the one who displays the most gentlemanly qualities of generosity, kindness, commitment, and sacrifice. His development reveals how a person's social status doesn't define who they are as a character. The contrast between characters in Kent and Satis House, such as the kind-hearted Joe and the cruel manipulative Havisham, represent Dickens's own perception of the exploitative nature of the upper class in the Industrial Revolution. Havisham's constant state of misery, contrasted against Joe's cheerfulness, also shows the value of moral integrity and justice through emotion. The overall themes of this book are essentially about embracing the humanitarian aspects of life, warning readers not to neglect our morals and values for material wealth and status. Now that all the boring English literature stuff is out of the way, let's begin looking into Rarity. Rarity as a character is defined as one with a love of class and fashion, often described as beautiful, sophisticated, elegant, maybe a tad melodramatic, and she represents the element of generosity. While all of the main cast have some kind of flaw that they must overcome to truly represent their elements, such as Fluttershy's shyness sometimes preventing her from helping others, and Rainbow Dash's personal ambitions and desire for glory often getting in the way of her devotion to her friends, the contrast between Rarity's character as one of higher class with aspirations of wealth and beauty, to her element of harmony, establishes her as a somewhat paradoxical character. Yet it's this nuanced characterization that allows the show to perfectly explore what it means to be generous. Unlike the typical stereotype, her generosity is often displayed through the sacrifice of her creations, reputation, and vanity for others. Throughout the series, she learns to balance her desire for higher society with her commitments towards her friends, learning how true beauty comes from virtues like generosity. There are many times where her love of beauty comes into conflict with her priorities towards friendship. Such was the case in the Season 1 episode Sonic Rainboom, where after acquiring beautiful wings from Twilight's magic, the praise and attention she receives causes her to disregard her commitments in supporting Rainbow Dash in the Best Young Flyer competition. Although she did eventually realize her mistakes, since this wasn't actually a Rarity episode, she doesn't really get any complex lesson other than just humility when supporting friends and to not selfishly seek attention. However, this episode does provide us with one of her main flaws, her desire for attention stemming from her love of beauty and high society. Now that we've established Rarity's character, let's explore how she learns to embrace the values of generosity and friendship as she becomes integrated into the big city of Manhattan and the wealthy elites of Canterlot. In the Season 4 episode, Rarity Takes Manhattan, she takes part in Manhattan's Fashion Week, where the importance of generosity comes into question. During this event, Rarity gives another designer, Suri Polymer, some of her custom fabric to help them with their catalogue's accents. However, Suri goes on to abuse Rarity's generosity by using the fabric to copy her entire fashion line, expressing how
it's every pony for herself in the big city, okay?
Suri also has an assistant called Coco Pommel who she regularly bullies, which I think is probably a work health and safety violation, but whatever. This devastates Rarity as she expresses,
"My generosity has ruined me, I tell you! Ruined!"
But her friends reassure her that they're there to help her wherever she needs. The main six then get to work creating new fabrics and designs, but Rarity begins to adopt the ruthless, selfish behaviours and traits of Suri as she antagonizes her friends, finally echoing her phrase,
"Congratulations, fillies! Sounds like you've all figured out already it's every pony for herself in this town!"
The main six do end up finishing the fabrics on time, but with Rarity leaving without so much as a thank you, and Twilight's retort of,
"You're welcome!"
we can clearly see how this experience in the big city has warped Rarity's sense of generosity and friendship. Also, just look at this face. Does it look like the face of a pony who's had a good time helping their generous, thoughtful friend? Anyways, Rarity displays the designs and the audience loves them, causing her to get excited. However, in this excitement, Rarity expresses how she wants to celebrate with her friends, only to find that they weren't there. This revelation causes Rarity to reflect on her actions towards them, realizing that she'd taken advantage of their friendship, and laments,
"What have I done?"
I'd like to take a little tangent here to draw a parallel to Miss Havisham, as I feel like this scene really resonates with her character, so skip to here if you want to get back to the Rarity stuff. I touched on this a bit earlier, but Miss Havisham's backstory in Great Expectations revolves around the fact that she got stood up at her wedding, breaking her heart and corrupting her into a bitter old woman. Since then, she's pretty much only worn her wedding dress, now stained yellow, as her house deteriorates around her, which reflects her state of mind, being stuck in that moment of her wedding. Miss Havisham's only goal in life from that moment was to break the hearts of every man to get her revenge, and ultimately led Pip down a path of his own moral corruption. At the end, Havisham does come to terms with her actions, realizing how she had caused so much pain and suffering and had become just like the man who ruined her own life, and echoes that very same phrase, "What have I done?" Both of these characters, Rarity and Havisham, follow a pretty similar path here, as they both find themselves becoming the people they despise, and both finally reflect on their actions with the same rhetoric. Going back to Rarity, she leaves the fashion show midway through a showcase to make amends with her friends, but finds that they had already left the hotel, believing that they had gone back home. She goes around Manhattan lamenting on how she had mistreated her friends, and when she gets back to the hotel, she finds that her friends are still there. As it turns out, her friends just missed the showcase due to oversleeping and were really sorry. Suri also informs the main six that Rarity lost the fashion showcase, but Rarity remarks how she doesn't even care, as long as she has her friends with her, finally reverting back to her old values of friendship and generosity. Coco Pommel later approaches Rarity and informs her that she actually did win the competition and gave her the trophy, telling her how Suri was just lying in hopes that Rarity would not receive the prize, and the episode ends with this simple yet effective friendship lesson.
Manhattan was simply grand. It was in this magnificent metropolis that I learned that while there are ponies who will take advantage of your generosity, you should never ever let that cause you to abandon your generous spirit. Nothing feels worse than taking advantage of the giving nature of your friends.
This episode reflects the moral corruption of ambition in Great Expectations, and the evaluation of true worth. In Great Expectations, Pip leaves his humble rural life in Kent to become a gentleman in London, believing that his new social standing will shape him into a better person. Instead, Pip becomes selfish and ungrateful as he abandons his true friends in Joe and Biddy in pursuit of social class and reputation. Likewise, Rarity travels to the big city of Manhattan to gain fame in a fashion competition. Similar to Pip, she becomes obsessed with success and begins treating her friends poorly in a quest to make it in the big city, and thus momentarily abandoning her core virtue of generosity as it gets exploited by others. The endings of the two stories also mirror each other, as both Pip and Rarity reevaluate where the true value of a character lies. Pip learns how being a true gentleman doesn't lie in one's status or wealth, but in love, loyalty, and redemption, realizing that his great expectations were shallow compared to the love and care of his friends. This revelation is mirrored in Rarity's experience, as she realizes that her obsession with winning at the cost of her friends was wrong, and learns to put her generous spirit above her own selfish desires. In both of these cases, the lesson I personally see resonating from them is that there's greater fulfillment found in embracing good virtues in relationships, rather than chasing fame and fortune. This development is explored further in the Season 5 episode Canterlot Boutique, in which Rarity expands her fashion business into the royal city of Canterlot, where her motivation and love of designing gets warped as demand for her dress designs grows, compromising her artistic integrity. I know I spent a lot of time on the other episodes, so I'll make this recap quick. In this episode, Rarity opens her dream shop, the Canterlot Carousel, and hires a manager called Sassy Saddles. The main conflict revolves around how Rarity values creating unique and expressive outfits, while Sassy Saddles prioritizes sales, efficiency, and trends, turning the boutique into something of a factory. The Canterlot Carousel was initially very successful. However, Sassy's focus on the mass production of one princess dress stifles Rarity's creativity, causing her to lose the passion for her work. Overwhelmed by this mass production, Rarity resolves to close down the Canterlot Carousel. However, after displaying her original high-quality designs, she sees how much the customers love them, which rekindles her love of design. She reasserts her artistic vision and shares her passion with Sassy through the rules of Rarity, who then apologizes for her behavior, having overstepped as a manager. In the end, Rarity allows Sassy to continue managing her boutique with the condition that it's run according to her standards and vision. Just as Pip moved to London to become a gentleman, Rarity expanded her business into the high society of Canterlot to achieve her lifelong dream, and both of these characters find that their great expectations of this new life comes with unexpected personal and moral costs. The pressure for Rarity to abandon her unique design philosophy to mass-produce her princess dress and meet popular demand mirrors Pip's struggles to maintain his personal identity and values as he conforms to the artificial standards of a London gentleman. Rarity ultimately realizes that her success was empty as it had strayed so far from her original ideals, and thus finding that the true worth of her success lied within her passion, reflecting the values of true worth in Great Expectations. Across Manhattan and Canterlot, Rarity's struggles and development mirrors the journey presented in Great Expectations, where ambition and success promises self-improvement and discovery, whilst quietly demanding moral degradation and compromise. Pip believes that becoming a gentleman makes him worthy of Estella's love, whilst Rarity believes her success validates her talents, yet every time she sacrifices her virtues and friendship for recognition, she finds that success empty and unfulfilling. Ultimately, while Dickens explores how wealth and status cannot and does not create character, Rarity shows us that strength in character and virtue is what makes success worth having. Overall, these developments are what I find so compelling about her character. Her element of generosity doesn't necessarily represent charity or gifting, but giving up things that she treasures the most. Instead of just simply giving away dresses or money, she represents generosity by sacrificing her reputation, work, and sometimes even her dreams to fulfill her commitments to her friends and uphold her values. Earlier, I said Rarity's character is a paradox, as she emphasizes wealth and status, whilst embodying selflessness, but after exploring her character, I think I can pretty confidently say she isn't. While these values seem contradictory at first glance, her nuanced take on generosity honestly teaches us more about virtues and morality than the common heart of gold kind of tropes, and I have to say that she never really loses her great expectations, but instead learns to adapt and redefine them to make them compatible with her values, friendship, and her element of generosity. That's pretty much all I have to say for this video, and I hope you enjoyed this analysis. If you think I missed something or want to add your own thoughts, feel free to share them down below, and if you have any ideas or suggestions for future videos, just let me know and I might make some of them. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.